Operations Supervisor, and I want to welcome you guys here for our Women's History Month program. Americans' women's history has been full of pioneers, women who have fought for their rights, worked hard to be treated equally, and made great strides in fields of science, politics, sports, literature, and art. From the Wyoming Territory, the first state to grant women the right to vote in 1869, to Amelia Earhart, the first woman to cross the Atlantic Ocean in an airplane in 1928, to Frances Perkins, becoming the first female member of a presidential cabinet in 1933. An activist, Alice Paul, who proposed the Equal Rights Amendment for the first time in 1923. And did you know that to this day, that there are 15 states that have never ratified the Equal Rights Amendment, with Louisiana being one of those 15 states? Sean. To Sandra Day O'Connor, the first woman to serve on the Supreme Court in 1981. To Madeleine Albright, the first female Secretary of State in 1997. To Catherine Bigelow, becoming the first woman to win an Oscar for Best Director in 2010. To Hillary Clinton, becoming the first female presidential nominee of a major party in 2016. And last, to the 116th Congress, having the most women in the United States history. So, with that being said, what famous first will American women achieve next? I will ask if you all please stand at this time for the playing of the national anthem and remain standing for the invocation by Tech Sergeant Wells from the 2nd Bomb Wing at Barksdale Air Force Base.
Four-star General of the U.S. Army, and others that continue to progress to the next level. I pray for our younger generations that follow and continue to make strides in areas where inequality exists. All these things we pray in your Son's most holiest name. Amen.
Please be seated. Everybody, welcome to the Shreveport MEPS. It's my honor and privilege to welcome you to our station here to observe Women's History Month, which has some history in itself behind it. So the first International Women's Day was on March 8th, 1911, and in 1980 President Carter established the National Women's History Month. or a week, sorry. And then in 1987, Congress enacted to make that week a full month. Of course, women have been influencing the world since the beginning of time and making history. I would also like to add that even though we have only started recognizing the impact women have on influencing the course of history as a day in 1911, a week in 1980, or a month in 1987, their contributions have always been there, and without them, well, quite honestly, none of us would be here, one, and we wouldn't be the people we are or the great country we continuously work to improve for everyone. But I'm glad that there is each year a time when we pause to think about the role of women, because history is more than simply what happened and more than what women and men did to make it happen. History is what we remember about those deeds. It is the lessons we have taken from the past and the knowledge we draw on to live today and to shape the future. One lesson from history is that it is no coincidence that America's great success in the past century, and indeed rise to becoming a world superpower, came as women fought for and steadily increased their participation in every aspect of society. Starting with gaining the right to vote just a few years before International Women's Day, the American century, as it's sometimes known, was also a century of progress for women. The principles of equality for all, including women, as we recognize this month, is absolutely fundamental to our country's values and vital to the principles of freedom and liberty for all that have been and continue to be so influential around the world and indeed make the world a better place. It is now my privilege to introduce the Honorable Erin Leigh Waddle Garrett, who was born and raised in Southern Hills and graduated from Southwood High School in 1998. She worked her way through college, waiting tables and tutoring disabled students, and received her Bachelor of Arts from Louisiana Tech University in 2002. In 2006, she received her Juris Doctorate from Southern, graduating magna cum laude, and subsequently passed the bar examination, being admitted to practice law that same year. Immediately after law school, Judge Garrett moved to New Orleans to serve as a law clerk for Chief Justice Pascal F. Calagaro, Jr. of the Louisiana Supreme Court. Toward the end of her clerkship, Judge Garrett decided to move back to Shreveport to practice law. She started by working as an associate attorney, first for the law office of Catherine Clark Dora, and second at the law firm of Simmons, Morris, and Carroll. In December 2010, she opened her own legal practice in her father's old blue law office in Southern Hills. She practiced law until December 2014, when she was elected as a Louisiana State District Court judge. She's only the 6th female to be elected to the 1st Judicial District Court of Caddo Parish and the youngest active sitting judge at this time. Judge Garrett has been an active member of the Louisiana State Bar Association as well as the Shreveport Bar Association. For the past 3 years, Judge Garrett has been serving on the drug court bench, presiding over criminal cases involving various drug-related offenses. Judge Garrett takes pride in having made such significant strides in implementing programs, practices, and policies that are beneficial to the community as well as the defendants. Her goal is to promote treatment-based programs for offenders, allowing them the opportunity to change their lifestyle while focusing on recovery, really concentrating on the long-term commitment to sobriety. Judge Garrett is most proud of her 3 amazing children, ages 6, 4, and 3, who she considers her greatest accomplishment, and who apparently crashed her and wrecked her knee this past week. So if everybody would put their hands together and welcome Judge Garrett.
First, thank you for having me here. It's always a pleasure to speak, even though really I hate public speaking. It's my least favorite thing to do. It's probably my least favorite thing about this job, but I like to speak because I think it's important to give back, and I get nervous every time. I prepare a speech every time, and then I usually never look at it again, so I'll lose my place and I'll go rogue because that's what I do. I do have to leave early. I had planned to be here for the reception as well, but my daughter took me out on the slopes earlier this week, and I'm headed to an MRI because they think she tore my ACL and MCL or PCL, some ligaments, and so I have surgery to look forward to. But in any event, I especially wanted to say thanks for having me back here because y'all have heard me speak before, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, willing to endure my public speaking skills again, but in any event, my favorite fun fact, he said, was that I was the youngest elected judge, although I can't prove it. I've researched numerous times and I can't find anything and I even called the law library to see if maybe they had some information, and I can't find any. But I'm fairly certain that I'm the first, second generation to serve in Caddo Parish, which I served with my dad. It's his last term and my first, which is cool for the most part, with the exception of him being so close in proximity to tell me everything he thinks I could do better. And I'm sure nobody can relate to that. But last time I was here, I focused primarily on the campaign, probably because it was such a fresh wound. It had just been completed and I was still reeling from the fact that I had done it with a 1-year-old and running a law practice and sold my house and had a baby in the middle of all of that. And so I focused a lot on that last time, and so I thought maybe I could focus on my real world experience that I've been able to, I guess, gain since I took the bench. The first 2 years I spent on the domestic bench, and I'm not really going to focus on that today. I would like to focus on the drug court aspect, because it has been eye-opening to me, and it might be to y'all as well. When I sat down to review my notes and see what I might put together today, the words stood out to me: visionary, champion, peace, and how strong words those words, and how really you don't hear them enough, at least not in a positive context. And I guarantee you, if I turn on the news, I don't hear that. My daughter doesn't hear that. My boys don't hear that. Those aren't things that I hear in a context as it pertains to positive, actual real world experience for people that I connect with on a daily basis. I think it'd be fabulous if someone was on the news exploiting the fabulousness of some champion woman for change, or man for change, or if I heard anything positive on the news, that would be delightful. However, that's not always the case, and instead, we hear most likely stories of hate, disaster, violence, and I don't. That's not my truth. I hear that. I refuse to let that be how I live my life, how I teach my kids to live their life, and how I interact with people who may be even criminals. That I feel like you at least deserve respect, no matter who you are. And that's how I operate my life. That's how I teach my kids. That's how I run my courtroom. I think it's important, because people don't want to change, even if they might be able to change, if they don't think that anybody cares about them. And so to me, the first step to gaining that is respect. And that's how I've always operated. In any event, my goal, I guess in general, is to have this next generation coming up, or at least my part in it, to have the news talk about so many great things that they can't fit all the accomplishments of the young people into what short amount of broadcast they have. And I don't know if that'll happen, but I like to think it will, and so I operate that way. When I was first elected, I was excited to change the world. I was young and naive and a bit apprehensive. Not that it was that long ago. I'm not for sure why I'm acting like I'm 70, but I had these grand ideas about what I was going to do to make everything better. What ideas that I had to positively affect the majority of the community. And when I actually took the bench, my dreams met reality quickly. I was new, I was young, I was a woman, and of course I was only elected because my daddy was a judge, right? According to the majority of the old lawyers that came through who had seen me since I had grown up, they didn't want to take into account that I was now actually a judge. I was still to them that little errand lady that was running around the courthouse, when I was a young tot. So as much as it helps to have your dad as an influencer, I'm not for sure it doesn't cause just as many problems. But in any event, Obviously, I could go on about the significance of maybe how my dreams were met with reality, but the important part is, or the takeaway would be that maybe people weren't as excited. Not all the people were as excited as I had hoped that they would be with my being elected, and they wanted me to prove myself. And I wasn't able to do that when I first took the domestic bench, because that's where I had practiced and that's what I was used to, and I was just doing the same old thing. And when I took the drug court bench, I thought to myself, I said, you know what, they might not be excited right now, but they're gonna be. I'm gonna show them how this new young female judge can effectuate some big change. And I think I've done that, or at least I'm on my way to doing that. When I took the drug court bench, I didn't have any idea how to run a criminal court docket. I'd probably only been in criminal court like 5 times, and that was for friends of mine from high school that got in trouble. And I didn't have any idea what to do. And I certainly, the amount of criminal cases that I had handled up to that point didn't prepare me for the long dockets of drug court. I don't know how familiar y'all are with the system in general. We have 4 criminal court judges, and their dockets run about 30 cases a day. Mine last week were 104, 117, 119, 93, and my lightest day was 89 cases on my docket. That's per week. That's drug-related offenses. That's not your manslaughters, your rapes, your burglaries, batteries. That is your pure drug crimes. That's your sellers, that's your users, that's your now, I have incidentals, because if it's a more significant drug crime than whatever the accompanying charge might would be, I get those too. But in my opinion, drugs, if not the start, or at least involved in 90% of the crimes, right? And that's across the board. They might not be what started it, but they're involved. It was something gone bad. It was somebody acted out. They are interlaced with the majority of the crimes. And so I see a decent amount of number, sometimes 4 times what the other criminal judges see. And so I certainly wasn't prepared for that, even if I had been prepared for a criminal docket. But in any event, it didn't take long for me to get the hang of it. It probably took less time for me to figure out that I didn't like how they were doing it. I thought it was inefficient. I thought we were running circles like a hamster on a wheel. I thought that every time that we'd get a leg up, the chair fell, and that we weren't doing anybody any good. We weren't serving justice. We weren't helping the community. My recidivism rates weren't going down. I was seeing the same people, and to be fair, I still see them sometimes over and over, but I just felt like we just kept seeing everybody over and over. And I felt like when I was taking pleas from these people that they didn't understand like what they were agreeing to, and how their life was about to change, and what the court expected them to do. And so I felt like every single case I was setting these people up for failure. They come back in, nobody explained to them what was supposed to go on. And I understand that they're taking a plea, they're then a felon, but you know, if we don't help them to do something different, then they're just going to keep on doing the same thing, and we're not positively affecting the community or the drug world or anybody else. And you know, I heard this in my speak. Like I said, I go rogue and I'm gonna lose my place. But I heard Edwin Edwards speak years ago, and you know, he said, y'all don't teach us nothing. And so when we go in as felons, we come out as felons. Now, Edwin didn't have that problem, because he found himself a pretty young thing, and could write books because he was a previous governor, and was still, when he speaks, is probably one of the most charismatic people I've ever seen. But in any event, not all felons have his skill, right? They're not a previous governor of the state and spent time in a white-collar, you know, penitentiary. They have a harder struggle when they get out, and we don't teach them anything, and we don't advocate for any changes. Then they're just going to keep on doing the same thing, because they don't know any differently. And so significantly, like I said, I feel like I was just herding sheep, just moving them through, and I wasn't doing anything good. So, and like I said, to be clear, sometimes people don't want help, they refuse help, and my only option is to put them in jail. But for others, for the majority, I feel like they're receptive to me. It's maybe about treatment for them, a new environment, a support system, hope, and to know somebody cares, like actually just cares about you in general. That to me goes a long way. But in any event, I knew I had to implement change, and I didn't have any idea what to do. So as luck would have it, the good Lord showed me a way, and His plan's always bigger than mine. So I was at a work conference, and a member of the audience kept answering for this panel of speakers. And you know, lawyers, when they talk, I don't know if we've got any lawyers in here, but they don't always make sense, and they talk above everybody's head, and I find myself, I'm like, can you dumb this down for me? Can you like speak? Nobody can understand what you're saying. So this guy from the audience kept answering the questions, and I thought, God, that makes sense. That could work. That's smart, you know. And he wasn't even on the panel, but they kept looking to him. He was certainly more practical than everybody else. So as soon as that was over, my mama didn't raise no fool. I ran up there to him, introduced myself, and asked him if I could set up an appointment to come tour his courthouse. And he, of course, obliged, and I went, and I took my secretary and my clerk, because sometimes I bite off way more than I can chew, and I need somebody to keep me reeled in a little bit. And then I needed somebody to tell me what I couldn't do, I guess was a better term. But in any event, and I didn't want to reinvent the wheel. I just wanted to have it run more smoothly for everybody involved. I mean, if we're going to use up, you know, the majority of my day, then I at least want it to be productive. I don't mind staying in there, but I'm not going to stay in there to watch you twiddle your thumbs. That just is a waste of my time and yours, and I got better things to do. So we went and we learned a lot of stuff, and we got some ideas that I could implement here, but probably the best thing I left with that day was the confidence that I didn't have to do what everybody had always done. I didn't have to keep doing something that wasn't working for me, that I didn't think, and I hadn't thought about. I mean, I knew it wasn't working, but I didn't come in there. I didn't want to upset the apple cart. I didn't want to come in and tick everybody off on the front end, and I did a smooth transition, but I think the most significant part of that was that I realized that I could do something different, and I wasn't going to be bound by the constraints of what had previously been done. And I know that y'all completely understand when I say that change went super smooth, right? Because everybody loves change, right? So everybody was on board immediately, and we didn't have any, no, that's not how it went. It was terrible. And we had a full, I lost 2 DAs. The real DA had to come. I mean, it was a hot mess. And I had ID, indigent defenders that are supposed to represent the criminals. We had a turnover over there. Of course, you know, nobody gets paid enough to work overtime. There's just always a problem, right? We were implementing paperwork. These 90-year-old lawyers didn't understand why they had to sign documents. I mean, it was nobody was super happy. But it's important to note that I ran on that I wasn't going to be typical, and that in a historical sense I intended to do a little bit differently than had always been done in the courts. And to me, let's be real, faith in the system isn't real high right now. You know what I mean? So it doesn't get a lot of good press, and unfortunately for the system in general, while for I don't know, actresses and actors, maybe no press is bad press. That's not the same for judges in the judicial system in general. So I felt like I should maybe, it was my duty to improve it, at least in my little area of the world. And so I thought that maybe I'd bring what I have, which is relatability and practicality. And so instead of just ordering people to do things, I try to explain what I'm doing, why I'm doing them, how I think it'll help them, why I tailored it to them, how I spent probably 9 more hours on it than I should have. How my secretary called me cussing 3 times because she didn't think we should have been putting that much time into somebody who probably wouldn't care, and then I tell them to prove me wrong, you know. Put it back in their court sometimes not, it depends, but I try to see people, I try to hear them and focus on what I think is best for their situation, and that's hard to do with 104 plus people on my docket. It's hard, but if I don't do it, nobody else is going to, obviously. And so I try to build trust and be patient. I don't always win at that. Sometimes I get super frustrated. I got to take a break. Sometimes my clerk will turn around and shake a Snickers. I mean, it just depends on how the day is. But I try, you know. And so I don't know. That's half the battle, I feel like. And some things that I've done that I think have really been beneficial for the community. And we're only a year in now. We're probably about 19 months now. But some things that I started doing, I've added programs for defendants, specialized programs. There's programs that we had grant funded money for that have been sitting in accounts that we never knew were there because that wasn't somebody's job. So we found those programs, referring them from court. Well, I don't want drugs. Well, I didn't ask you. Sorry. We're just going to go get you evaluated. If they say you don't need it, you don't have to go. But I'm going to get a report, and then we'll get it back, and we'll see how it goes from there. I've started implementing community service hours in connection with every single one of my pleas, my misdemeanors, and my felonies. And you get hour-for-hour credit for every education, vocation, industrial trade credit that you get towards that, right? So I'm improving vocation, and if you don't want to improve your vocation or your trade, then you can do community service at the soup kitchen. It doesn't matter to me. You can take your pick, but I'm going to force you to do them, so you might as well use them to get your GED or your college credit hours or your welding certificate or cosmetology. You get hour-for-hour credit on whatever vocation you might choose. And that's required, like I said, with the misdemeanors and my felony. And that really is to promote the whole lifestyle change. And so while maybe you use that time to find something that you like, and then your lifestyle changes, and then you don't come back in my court every week because you've got something else to do. You actually got a job to go to, or, you know, and not just sit on the side of the road or hold up your stamp or whatever it is that you did before. And a lot of people, when they came in, I'm going rogue again, so I'm probably going to go off, but a lot of people, when they come in, and I'm like, do you have a job? Well, no. Now, they're getting smarter now. A lot of them don't say no anymore. But they'll say no, and I'll say, why? Like, what do you mean you don't know? Do you don't know? Well, I mean, I don't know. I'm like, what do you do all day? Obviously, besides whatever you did to get in here. Well, like, what do you do? Do you not, I mean, well, TV. What, I mean, can you watch that much? I don't know. That's a lot of TV. Do you go to eat? I don't know. So I feel like sometimes people just need to kind of be, and some people still don't get jobs, or at least they're lying to me now. I don't know. But some people do. And I think that at least that small percentage who really just needed to be patted on the behind to give them a little push, it is really better than, even if it's only one person, it's still better than what it was before in my book. So, I also started working with probation and parole to get the appropriate programs for defendants and streamlining and starting a probation orientation program where once a month, everybody that pled out that month, I meet with them in a room and we do a question and answer panel. Do you understand what you're supposed to do? Is there an accommodation I need to make? What can I do to help you? Do you need me to talk to your parole officer, probation officer? Is there something that's not working? And these are programs that really should have been around before, and maybe they were, but nobody knew they existed. And so these are things that I really feel like are making the difference because they want to be heard. They don't want to just be herded. They want to be heard. They want to know if there's a problem that's like, you know, my child is in the hospital and I can't get there until noon. I want to set them up for an accomplishment. I want to set them up for failure because it's just a waste of my time, just like theirs. I mean, honestly, I'd prefer to accommodate their schedule if it's legit, so that we can actually have a successful completion and a lower recidivism rate when they come back. I have implemented increased fines for habitual offenders and severe felonies, which are your dealers. Significantly, your dealers of meth, cocaine, the fentanyl cutters. We got a new rise of fentanyl coming in, so be prepared for that. 1/16 of a sugar packet will kill probably this whole room, and they're lacing it in the cocaine and the meth. So, and it doesn't make sense to me, because why you want to kill off your demand, but I don't know, they're doing it. We've seen heroin come back. I had 2 heroin pleas last week. It goes up and down, and it's back. So these are things that are just, they're not going away, and I don't feel like the public is super aware of. I certainly didn't know, which is really bad for my kids, because I know way too much now, but I didn't know how it was turning out, and so y'all should be prepared for the increase in heroin, which, well, and cocaine, really, those are more violent drugs when they take, right? So meth, you're gonna have them more strung out. That's gonna be your burglaries. They're just trying to get the money for their habits. The heroin, the cocaine, these are drugs that lead to aggressive behavior, and we're seeing a rise in them again. So your numbers in your area, this area, are going to increase as well. So be prepared for that. Mark my words when it happens. I think most importantly, I've implemented a student special for like young kids who just are idiots and make a mistake, and so I make them write me an essay on, why you're going to change your life and why this ain't where you want to be, and I make them go to an NA meeting so that they can see the stories they don't want to become. I make them bring me proof of school and get like a little part-time job, and if they can, I've now partnered with Goodwill Industries and Workforce Commission to get felons jobs around here. If anybody has any places that'll hire my young high school and early college students, that'd be great. Y'all let me know after. But just for kids, we don't need to list my mistakes, right? I don't need to go through all of those with you, but I can assure you I made them. And I think sometimes these kids don't have the opportunity to just have one bad thing fall out. And so I like to try to make that an option for them, so that we can get them on the right path and not let one thing affect their whole life. Of course, there's still downfalls that I'm working out. It's hard to be in the profession in general. Being in charge of people's lives is super heavy. It's hard to be a woman in this position because it's historically been run by men. And some days I feel it more than others. To be fair, some days though I don't feel it at all. But when I do feel it, let me tell you, it gives me all the feels. They don't come at me with like some half stuff. I feel like it's all in. If they're going chauvinist on me, I'm gonna get all the feels. I'm always referred to as sir. At least half of everybody in there, yes sir, yes sir. And I'm not offended, because I'm way too gaudy to be mistaken for a man, and I understand that. It's not lost on me. However, I just think to myself, I'm like, man, it's 2019. Like, how is your habit to be like, yes sir? But whatever, again, I'm not offended. It's interesting when this becomes the topic and I start looking about things in my daily life, how it affects me. And when they do get it right, it's Miss Ma'am, Lady Judge, Ma'am, Lady Ma'am, Judge, Miss, Ma'am, Ma'am, Lady Judge, Ma'am. Ma'am, that Lady Judge is gonna, Ma'am, Miss Judge. It's never just judge, it's like they use every female pronoun to make sure that, like, I don't know, they heavy it on with the female stuff, like as though the real judge is a man, which I historically get. And I wonder, are they confused, or do they just think that's going to make me be nicer? I don't know. But in the end, sometimes I wonder why they're smiling at me or keeping on with that Lady Ma'am Judge stuff, and sometimes I don't wonder. Sometimes they wink at me. Sometimes they blow kisses at me. Sometimes I've had one, I thought he was over there signing his paperwork. He's writing down his mama's digits to provide to me. Like I was gonna call him after court, okay? And this stuff happens. It happens. It doesn't happen every day. It doesn't happen every week, but it happens a lot more than you would think it happens. And I have to wonder, I'm like, okay, and I know it's inappropriate. Oh, and I've had some guy, apparently, and I'm not gonna say his name, but anyway, so I had him, and I don't remember his face particularly, but he hit me up on the Facebook telling me that his life has changed and then sent me a lot of kissy emojis through Messenger. So, and I know it's inappropriate, and of course I don't reciprocate, but I bet my last dollar that my dad never had anybody blow a kiss at him on the bench, right? I can guarantee you nobody sent them up their digits. And I bet it's nearly unheard of for someone to approach a male judge in Walmart about his child support, or where I'm eating dinner at a restaurant, carrying on about why he can't afford the child support that I told him to pay his baby mama. I can guarantee you in all of my years at a restaurant with my dad, the Western Sizzlin right down here, that, when it was, changed now, but that nobody ever came up to his table. I went rogue, I lost my place, but, and then this might be, I don't know, the kissing story is my favorite, but this might be a second favorite, and it happened like right when I took the bench. And this guy somehow got past the front desk and security, and he barges into my office, and I hear him arguing with my secretary, who's been in my life since I was 4. So she's my kid's like essential grandma. I mean, she's always around. And I hear him arguing with her, and I walked out, and he's demanding to see the judge. I must see the judge. I have to see the judge. I'm gonna see the judge. And so I walked out, I'm like, what's the problem? And he said, I need to see the judge. And I said, I am the judge. And he said, no, not you, the real judge. And I'm like, well, that's offensive, I think. I don't know, sir, you're gonna need to leave. And I'm kidding. I helped him, it was fine. He went on about, but that's just historically, you know, how it had been. And I don't know if it's because I'm relatable or because I'm a woman or one of a million other reasons why people treat me differently, particularly the defendants. And here is a side note as a PSA. I can't talk to you about your case per the Supreme Court. They told me I can't. I cannot hang out with you if you were a defendant in the parking lot of Walmart. I usually, almost all the time, have my kids with me. Sir, do you see these 3 kids in my buggy? Do you see them? Do they look like I have time to talk to you about your child support? Or I don't have your file here. I don't know I don't know how much money I ordered you to pay. I don't know when you're coming back to my courtroom. But I really do want to help you. But I got to get these fools to bath, to bed, homework. I got to watch their nap mats, get their lunches packed, Power Ranger pajamas, Batman undies, you know, whatever color sippy cup it is. I don't have time. I want to help, but I need you to catch me before I leave that office. In the Walmart parking lot is not the place. I digress. That's not the point. Some judges may be offended by the behavior, I guess the relaxed behavior. I'm not. I've never been good at getting offended anyway, and I don't know what good it does. I mean, I like to take that and turn it into, I don't know, my MO to be something different. I don't have time for that. Lord knows I could stay mad at the disrespect in general that we all, I'm sure, feel specifically. I think mine just feels worse because it's usually in a courtroom full of like 100 people. So if somebody acts out, you got to kind of lay the hammer down because you got 103 other people that are going to think they can act that way. So it's not like the disrespect is any worse. It just feels worse because there's so many people, I feel like, and because historically the institution should be respected. But again, I digress. So, I'm not so sure that being treated differently doesn't help more than it hurts. when I need it to especially. Sometimes I think that the defendants are more receptive to me. Maybe they treat me differently because they feel like I care more, or because I smile more, or because I'm female, or because I get on my soapbox and I sound like their mama, or I run my courtroom differently. I don't know why they respond differently to me, and maybe they don't. Maybe it's all in my head. Maybe I'm not doing as much as I think that I'm doing. But here's what I know. I know that I'm hearing success stories now, and I'm hearing heartfelt thanks from the people that come through my courtroom. The jailers are coming in to tell me how the people in jail talk about how fair I am. That's important because it's building trust in the system, even though I might not see them every day. That's your street cred that is going in, that is helping the situation as a whole for me. So that's important. Most importantly, and I think I teared up twice last week, but never let them see you cry, right? But I waited till they were gone. But I watched 2 families last week reconnect, and they got a long road to repair those relationships, but nobody had given the time to get these people the specialized treatment that they needed. And because I did that, I did a 6-month review, and they came in, and everybody's doing good right now. And they might not do good forever, but they might. And if they don't, that family got 6 more months. You know what I mean? Which is important to me. And this is just in drug court, obviously, but it's relatable to like other aspects of life. And one of the probation orientations that I did, I had one of the defendants stand up, and he said that he'd been in the system his entire life, and that for the first time he actually saw people working together to effectuate change. He said, and it all started because you cared. I mean, that's pretty heavy for me. And if I don't hear anybody else say anything like that ever, and he's a felon. I mean, and he's probably a 7th or 8th time felon, but like I said, he'd been in the system, and he'd already done hard labor time and came back out. He's probably one of those ones that he never was able to change his lifestyle. And he says that, the fact that we're actually trying does as much for him as if we actually succeed in what we're doing. And so that's why I said at the beginning, somebody to care really goes a long way. The takeaway from all of this, or for what I want for my speech to have meant today, I guess, is that things don't always have to be the way that they always were. Things can change, people can change, we can change, we can help, even if it's just in our little corner. It might seem like it's super insignificant, but it matters to somebody, and it might be building foundations and walls that you might not even know about. You might not get any thanks, you probably won't. But instead of spending our time focusing on what's wrong with the world, maybe we should just focus on being our own visionaries and raising visionaries and being those people who think about and plan for the future with imagination and wisdom. So thank you for having me. Okay.
You have to keep getting up and down.
Yep, we don't want that.
And so, first of all, thank you for coming out and sharing the words of wisdom that you had with us, sharing your experiences. I know traditionally, you probably do have a harder time in the court because you're like a mama and everybody knows you care about them. So, but we appreciate you sharing your innovative methods in the court and the change you're making here. And so, as part of our we present to our guests here, we can put this somewhere in your office.
Yeah,
but we present a little plaque to you, and we just appreciate you coming down and making it part of your busy day.
I love it.
Making us a part of your busy day. So.
Thank y'all. Thank y'all so much for having me. I appreciate it. And I love this. I have mine from last time it's in my office.
And we have a yellow rose. I'm from
Thank
Texas,
you.
so I give out yellow roses because yellow rose is Texas thing.
Oh, okay. So you bring it over here? Okay.
So now we're bringing y'all, we're bringing y'all over. So no, I'm just, that just happens to be the roses we have. So
Thank you so much.
yeah,
I
so
love
thank
this.
you, thank you, Chad.
Thank y'all again.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
also.
All right. More roses, huh?
Yep.
All right. So, I guess I'm presenting roses to everybody, all the women. All the women, not everybody. You don't get a rose.
No, I'm good.
Sarah, my secretary. Thank you.
That's me.
First order. Thank you.
Mark?
Future soldier.
I'm good, thank you. Rose for you.
Right.
Miss G.
There you go. I'm sure that's a storage room, but. Yeah.
I couldn't get it. I'm in trouble. I can't even get with it.
Thank you, future.
That's because he doesn't want to lose. He doesn't know how to play.
Miss Wendy.
And Miss Amy.
I didn't see you.
Nobody can see Amy.
It's hard to see Amy. Amy needs to raise her hand.
What's up? You still working on it? Yes, sir.
I don't know where the others are. Where the others?
Where's the red?
Where the others?
Notice something
Where is
big and just focus on it. Start just focusing.
I always wanted to know.
Inquiring minds want to know.
Super noble, special.
All right, MEPS ladies, get up there.
You're on. There you go, using those words again.
And judge, lady, lady.
Lady and judge.
I know that Parker gave it Arizona, he's gonna be in the courtroom.
I want to hear. I'm standing there, I'm like, I know.
Amy, stand up.
Man, it's a special day. Making jokes. Let me get
Why
the
do you
picture.
sound? Oh.
Now we got all the women.
Mr. Jones.
Get in the picture, Mr. Jones.
Yeah, you did
Come on,
so much
Jones,
work.
sit up here.
Some merchant.
Jones arranged all this, so.
Merchant and EPS, we need anchors,
You guys
please.
just look fancy. I want you to
Anchors,
take a
please. We need anchors.
Here's this. You didn't make the rules now, Sarah?
Yeah, they do.
picture.
She's
It
the
was Wendy and I
AST.
both.
Oh, was it?
She's the AST, of course.
Y'all ready?
Are we all in here? We need to get tighter.
No, you're good.
I got a real camera.
This is the one that they want the pictures with.
That one we can immediately see them.
Awesome.
You don't have to have a
Sorry.
Hopefully not.
Or maybe I'm not.
So those are the white ones.
He was behaving.
Well, so that stopped in the 50s, I think. So, yeah, so,